Yappadoodle morning.
What was that? Oh no.
I think Fred Flintstone possessed me for a hot second.
Sorry, I have to recover from that.
Doesn't it give you like good old like Hanna Barbera vibes from Saturday morning cartoons? I thought that's what I was trying to share with people.
I don't think I would be surprised if anybody. I would be surprised if more than 20% of the internet understood the sentence that you just said.
Because it's a very old reference, and you got to be in the 90s.
I mean,
cartoon.
I mean, like Hanna-Barbera cartoons are even a little bit earlier than like you were watching old reruns during the 90s.
But that's what we had growing up. Okay.
But
what's your favorite of that? If you even watch any of yourself.
I did. So I watched Boomerang. Do you know what that is?
Boomerang? No, I don't know what that is.
So Boomerang, like my dad was a TV guy, and so like he really liked the whole early 2000s, late 90s, like 10 million channel packages type things. So he really liked those, and that's
cable TV, right? Or is that a different thing?
No, I mean, I guess technically it is cable, but it's not like public cable. It was like Comcast. Like when Comcast started like running fiber into people's houses. And so one of the things, because he loves watching sports, so we got a bunch of channels so that he could watch all the sports stuff that he wanted. And then it just so happened that Boomerang, which was kind of like the retro cartoon channel, I found that as like a young 10, 11-year-old, and so I would watch the Speed Racer, like OG Speed Racer, G.I. Joe, Jetsons. I really liked. There was like a weird show, like a they tried to do like a mega super show, kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where it was a race show where everybody had like planes and cars and stuff. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I do, but I'm like, that's not Speed Racer?
No. So Speed Racer, I believe, was an English dubbed Japanese cartoon that was previously like a manga or something like that, right?
So is it the one where there's the main guy has a hat and he kind of like looks like Waluigi? Am I remembering the same one? They have these like
Speed Racer
Matchbox cars.
Yeah, so that's not Speed Racer. The Speed Racer is Speed Racer with the white car, and they had like kind of like a more classic kind of race.
Oh, okay. Well, we gotta post this on our Discord later.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out. Michelle, I'm not sure what sentence you missed.
I think it's Yappadoodle morning.
Well, if that didn't get published, it's
the new official GM.
No, absolutely not. I vetoed that.
Is it vetoed by everyone? But yeah, speaking of GMs, thanks for joining us, Nabila, Priyanka, Isis, MFA, Michelle, and Jimo. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining. Was it because I add everyone on Discord?
Probably. Turns out when you notify people, they might show up.
Who knew?
But the cartoon that I'm talking about was, do you know the Jetsons, right?
Yes.
So the Jetsons, I watch the Flintstones too, but the Jetsons, that floaty car, Wacky Races. Tematope is exactly right. I'm pretty sure it was Wacky Races. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to Google it because I want to make sure.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that chat actually understands what we're talking about, because I'm always horrified by our extremely esoteric references.
But you were right as well, because it does have the Waluigi guy as like the guess the villain's name.
It's some antiquated sounding name, right? And something that rhymes.
Yeah.
Well, what chat? Do you know what we're talking about? Who we're talking about?
Let me drop it in the Discord here.
Okay.
I'm dropping it in the Yaps channel. Wacky Races.
Oh right, that's his name.
It's good old Dick Dastardly and his faithful evil dog Muttley. Muttley's a phenomenal name.
Yeah. I think Muttley got a lot more cameos in other cartoons than other characters.
Yeah, Muttley's such a good name for an evil dog sidekick, and I think his laugh was pretty iconic too.
Yeah, the little
What's up, yes too? Welcome, welcome, dude. I can't believe chat got that. This is the magic of chat.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm so
Thank you so
excited that
much.
that was discovered or
We now have a
adjudicated.
technically accurate nostalgic moment.
But according to the internet, Wacky Races only had one season. And
Oh.
did you ever experience that where it was a formative memory for you, or like a formative media piece for you, but it's actually just like a very small blip in time in the grand scheme of
Yeah, because they probably reran that one season a million times, as they did back then.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. The first season of SpongeBob feels like that too.
Yeah, but what about the Jetsons? What do you like about robot vacuum cleaners, Rosie?
Like, it's kind of lame, but I really liked that the Jetsons was broadly optimistic about the future. Like, that's the thing that I enjoyed about it.
So it's like the acceleration is like space thing. You're like imagining the Jetsons.
I mean, it's just from a time where people thought tomorrow would be better than today instead of just evil.
Yes, but I think it's also like interesting, right? Because they also had exactly the same like cultural expectations. It's sort of like on Reddit how there were these images of what people thought the future would look like.
Yeah.
And it was like, people living underwater, but women are still wearing these like balloon dresses for some reason because they couldn't imagine that we'll wear different clothes.
I mean, is that
Didn't
not
the wife just like take the money from the main guy in the Jetsons as like a stay-at-home housewife or something?
What was that?
In the Jetsons, like wasn't in the intro, wasn't a big part of it, like the wife takes the money from his wallet or something?
Yeah. I mean, like, a single income household was like the cultural standard. And so, yeah, I mean, like,
And he still had to go to a job and drive there. There was no remote work in Jetsons.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, but I would argue that we still do that. Like, it's really hard to imagine the future, and the closest thing that we have to like future imagining is shows like Black Mirror, because like we don't really do extension sci-fi that much anymore. There's some really good ones like Murderbot Diaries and stuff like that, but like for the most part, Black Mirror is most people's like future prediction touchstone, and Black Mirror is just today except a little bit further along, right? Like, there's not like big social shifts as far as I've been able to see.
Well, I thought it's like more like Idiocracy.
I mean, but Idiocracy isn't intended to actually be predictive. It was intended to be funny.
That's true. That's the unfortunate side effect of it.
Although I guess Jetsons, I don't know how many of them sat down and were like, hey, what do we actually think the future is going to be?
Because they just like did like the Flintstones, but did the opposite direction, right?
Yeah. Oh, but Flintstones is a documentary, though.
Oh, of the giant ribs that would like flip your entire like foot powered car.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like a Flintstones Hobbit crossover would be pretty good. You could still just use the cars.
That would be quite lovely. So, speaking of a pivot change of topics, how are you feeling today? I didn't know how to go from foot powered cars to feelings. Okay.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, like, speaking of things that start with F, how are your feelings today? Feelings, I would say moderate to severe. I feel.
Is that the weather system?
Yeah, that's the Cameron Weather Service. So I think I know I hurt my back again this weekend, which is a bummer. Because longtime listeners will know that I hurt my back in December, and I had a really long rehab period, and the unfortunate consequence of that rehab period was like I didn't really get to lift for like 8-ish weeks in the way that I wanted to, and so back in February I was kind of back to full strength, which was longer than I wanted. But now I did what I'm supposed to do when I tweak my back a little bit, which is to not push it. Classic old man dilemma of like, oh, I want to do the thing that I want to do, but my body says no, and so but I didn't push it yesterday. I was like, okay, I'm gonna like freeze my training plan where it is, where like in the moment, and then
Mm-hmm.
I will pick it back up next week just to be like super safe. I'm still like moving, taking my like daily constitutional and all that, but I didn't push it, and I woke up this morning and it was significantly better feeling. Not
Oh,
100%, but I was like, "Oh, okay. This is what a responsible and disciplined recovery hopefully feels like." So, I was feeling pretty bad yesterday about it cuz like the anxiety of, "Oh, am I like this injured again?" Today I feel good about that. I turned back on stretching. I don't think I'm gonna do Cameron Stretches channel like we had talked about, but I think I probably am at the age of okay, I just stretch now.
yes.
Do you stretch?
Uh, Not as much as I should, but I used to do it every single day for powerlifting. Like you cannot not stretch or you get yelled at by the coach. So I still have a certain like routine I have memorized,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I pull it out when I feel like doing it. But
Is
today
it
have not done it yet.
is it stretching or is it like a dynamic warm up?
Both.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's like trying to like warm up, your increase your heart rate and stretch joint for joint
Right,
every
right. We
single
talked
time.
about that last time. Um, but yeah,
Are you
so
using the magical Japanese patches I got you for your back?
no, I've put them somewhere and I can't find them.
What? How big is your home?
I mean,
It's probably in your luggage.
I lose stuff in my fridge.
Oh,
It's not the size. It's the just I am my own worst enemy when it comes to keeping track of things. You know what I
okay.
mean?
Okay.
Like I've
Well,
told
if
you
they
my
ever make
system.
their way out.
Have I told you about my system for making sure I remember things?
No, but I'm sure it's a a Rube Goldberg machine of
So
things.
I have like 7 or 8 places in
Mhm.
my domicile that if I need to remember something,
Mhm.
they're like little checkpoints where if like, okay, if it's on my desk right now and I need to take it out of my room, I have or
Mhm.
out of this like office room, I have a spot over there that it goes to, and then
Mhm.
so that way I'll see it as I'm leaving the room and I'll bring it to where it goes. There's an intermediary one of like, oh, it needs to leave this, but like it needs to get into like the down the stair. I have so many different checkpoints,
Mhm.
and it would just make sense to just take it and then walk and then go and put it by my keys.
Mhm.
But that's the final boss is like if I really need something like a form or a package,
Mhm.
I have to hide my keys underneath it or else I will forget it every time.
That's not too bad. That's I'm not saying that because I do exactly the same thing.
Hey, what's up, Katarina? Welcome back. So physical feelings,
Is this KBC, Katarina? Let us know.
I don't know. Physical feelings pretty good. Life, big choices, some stuff that we talked about previously are coming to a one-way door of like, okay, we make the decision and kind of live with it. And then professional wise, I'm still playing catch up, but I feel better about the spot that stuff is. And so that all in all, moderate to severe, like I said. What about you? How are you feeling?
In terms of weather system, I feel like cloudy.
Would a
This
chance
is
of
actually
meatball?
a good analogy. Like ever since I got like a little bit sick last, maybe like 2 weeks ago, I feel like the recovery process has been much longer. I feel like I really need a lot more sleep than I normally would.
That's like life now, right?
Yes, in terms of everything attacking our immune system, correct.
No.
Yeah, so just being able to work with a low energy state and still get stuff done is the hardest thing. Ooh, my lava lamp is coming alive. Do you see it? There's a little blob coming out.
Out of Stardust.
This is the most exciting purchase I've had for a long time. Oh, and speaking of like nostalgia and childhood stuff, I was telling Cameron one of my childhood dreams is owning a lava lamp. So I finally achieved this monumental task of buying one. Or like now they've gotten cheap enough where I feel like okay, it's $30. It's fine. But you can see it's slowly waking up.
The value of the dollar has gone down enough that you're like, all right, yeah, no, I can spend it on this.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think like right now I'm preparing to go to a conference end of the week and
Exciting.
earlier than what I expected because I'm trying to bum a ride with my friend. So it's just been a mad dash of me like just counting down of like, okay, I need to like pack my sleeping bag. Oh crap, there's a hole in my sleeping bag. I still need to patch it up.
You,
So
you
all those
actually
things.
packed your sleeping bag?
In this case, yes, because I'm literally bumming in the living room. Like he thought ahead and like actually booked an entire Airbnb for that location, and he already has like two other friends who are like staying there, and I'm just like, can I please be in your living room because I don't want to pay that much. So yeah, I'm gonna be like a very self-contained little like metapod that's gonna lie on the sofa, I think.
How big was the hole?
The hole. Oh, on the thing. I don't know because you hung tore it. So,
So
and
how big did it become?
she said that it was like about like less than 2 inches. So I got these like stick-on patches you can buy for like
Okay.
puffy jackets and stuff. I literally just need to like slap it on, but I need to fetch my sleeping bag from the car and all of that. So yeah, so it is like a bit of a panic. Kind of like the SpongeBob and Patrick running around in a circle sort of situation in my head,
Yeah.
while ironically presenting the role of Buddhism in being calm and resilient.
How do you patch it on the inside or the outside? Sorry, I'm really interested in this now.
No, you just like slap it on top. You have to like be okay with the fact that it's going to be a patch aesthetic. Okay, so I bought these like
But
cute
you do
little
it on
like
the outside
cutouts.
then.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
It's just literally a tear in the fabric. So then you just like stick on this little bear shaped like little guy on
Oh,
top.
so it's not even raggedy looking. Ooh, we got some people popping.
Hopefully not.
All right. Okay,
Hi,
baby.
okay,
Thanks for
baby.
dropping by.
Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah.
you got rained on. Ah,
That is unfortunate.
actual weather affecting your life
Yeah.
instead of our mental weather.
We talked about getting wet previously in terms of like the rain
We did.
and the like. I can't remember. Did you like getting rained on or no?
Not really.
Yeah. Right.
But you
That was the
did.
discussion. Well, sorry. I'm just that was an insane question to ask. I'm like realizing it as I asked it.
It depends on what kind of like tropical weather or whatever you are growing up in.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was walking yesterday
Yeah.
and it started sprinkling out of nowhere.
And then were you like one of those like deodorant commercials like where the woman is just like spinning around in a circle?
I can't remember the last time I watched a deodorant commercial. Like, because like I
One of
do
those
my,
vintage ones.
I do my best to block ads on the internet and not like I obviously get attacked by ads everywhere that you go, but I have pretty much nailed down not explicitly seeing ads anymore. And so like I'm just like processing the fact of how many deodorant commercials I used to watch.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
When they always on back then? Or like Axe body spray for men.
I feel like if I watched like ABC Family or like a mom channel, I would see it. I don't think that they were on like the cartoon channels.
Oh, true. Instead, we have all these like cool toys and stuff, like the make your own sticky spider thing with the easy bake oven. You know what I'm talking
Speaking of rain, Kristen, what are we talking about today?
Great, thank you. The pivot was necessary there. We're talking about This Is Water, some thoughts delivered on a significant occasion about living a compassionate life by David Foster Wallace. I feel like that subtitle was not part of the commencement speech for sure.
Yeah, and I think honestly that's a pretty terrible subtitle.
Yeah, I feel like the editor stuck that in.
Yeah, like This Is Water, famous graduation speech by David Foster Wallace. Notoriously not the kind of person that probably gets invited to do many graduation speeches.
You think so?
I mean, I know you didn't get through Infinite Jest, but like he's not a family friendly kind of dude.
He's not, but I think this college is some liberal arts college, where they probably made the students read Infinite Jest.
I'd be shocked. I mean, like
Really?
even pre AI, not
Yeah.
many people are getting through Infinite Jest.
Right. So David Foster Wallace, to give a flavor of his kind of writing, is very. It is like a little bit esoteric, right? Like he has
It's a lot bit esoteric.
I mean, compared to like Finnegan's Wake, no. Like, well, what level of esotericism are we talking about? But like in terms of like modern literature, I would say like many like I think quite American references are embedded within because he's trying to describe Americana in modern terms. And he does a lot of nonfiction as well as fiction writing. So his nonfiction writing includes like Consider the Lobster. I think one of his most famous writings is about tennis, about Federer. And that was a piece I really enjoyed because he was I think a college level athlete.
Yep.
For tennis, so he knows a lot of the special terms and the vibe.
I mean, a big chunk of Infinite Jest is dedicated towards like
right, that's where
for professional tennis.
You're right. As you can see, I have actively erased that from my mind. And there's another one that I really love, which is his description of the Adult Video Network Awards.
Yeah,
like a porn star Oscar sort of situation.
Yeah, you tell me more about that, Kristen.
Yeah, so it's a really fine piece on gonzo journalism, which is what I thought you were gonna do.
Just Nath, I'm looking drowned because we're talking about water today.
This is Water by David Foster Wallace.
What is this about?
The book?
Yeah, I mean, like the speech.
So my impression is that it is almost like a Buddhist talk in disguise.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's your impression.
Yeah. My ability to fit the Dharma into every situation. But the idea is that imagine this is like the early 2000s, before like even a lot of social media is taken off. But yet David Foster Wallace is giving this speech to young people about how they, could use more empathy in their lives.
If you've seen Office Space, the Office Space, the movie, honestly, The Matrix, all of those genre of movies, Fight Club, honestly, the original, like the OG Fight Club, that energy of like there's like a corpo blorg or like blob starting to take over things, like that's the cultural context that this speech is kind of given in.
Yeah. So and I feel like if he was alive today on Twitter, he would probably be really be like, no one read my speech.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he'd use Twitter?
Oh heck yeah.
Yeah. Do you think he'd use Twitter today? I think he'd use a Blue Sky.
Oh, he would be on Blue Sky. Yes. Oh, and then like if you can't tell from the way we're describing him, like he has since passed away a number of years ago. When did he die?
Yeah, he he self-initiated his demise. And he did some very good writing about that and the brain. Actually, like I've turned to his writing about that before because I think it's really meaningful and helpful for people to kind of like legibilize some of the bad things they feel. Metanorm disagrees with the Blue Sky characterization, and I could see that. The content of the This Is Water speech starts off with like what is now a pretty famous, as a result of this speech, mini parable of two young fish are swimming through the water. An older fish comes by, greets the younger fish and is just like, the water's really nice today. Like have a good one. Moves on, or morning boys, how's the water? Is I believe the line. And after the old fish swims away, the two young fish are like, they look at each other and they're like, what the hell is water? And like that vignette is what sets up the rest of the speech to talk about living a conscious life, understanding other people are also living a life. And really, he does his best to not moralize, but he explicitly talks about how many people don't consciously make decisions in their life. They're chasing some sort of thing unconsciously, or like the forces of their life let them sleepwalk through it in ways that, I don't know, for me were pretty recognizable. Is that like a fair characterization of what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. Like the whole like living unconsciously is the theme that was very popular in the 90s Office Space Fight Club situation, right? That was when like there was a lot more like corporate takeover, which we recognize now, but maybe not at the time. And we were just sort of like living these like super I would say like almost like benign like white collar lives. Which
Yeah.
in retrospect I'm like, well, it's actually pretty chill, but
Yeah, I mean it's easy to nostalgify or romanticize it.
Mhm.
It had its own influences and negative externalities, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
NPCs is the modern analog to this kind of energy. Is like living an
Yeah.
NPC life is what he was warning against doing.
And then Cool Beans asks, can we substitute intentionally versus consciously? I
Oh,
I think so. Like I would use both interchangeably.
I how would I what is the difference between those words? I think you can make decisions consciously but
Mhm.
unintentionally.
Oh, actually, I take it back. There is one instance or one interpretation where this not interchangeable, and it's from this monk I really like. He said consciousness and awareness are not the same, in that you actually can't choose whether you're conscious or unconscious in like when you fall asleep or like you get like into a coma or something. You actually
Mhm.
don't have a choice. Whereas awareness and like intentionality implies choice.
I don't know if I buy that.
You don't think that consciousness has a physiological component outside of your
I
domain? Like when you feel like really tired?
I think that there is a medical term consciousness that
Mhm.
like definitely has a medical definition.
Mhm.
I think conscious live as he's using it is not the medical definition. And like you can change the definitions of words, or definitions mean, or like words
Mhm.
mean different things in different contexts. So like from the pedantic perspective, I think I don't fully buy that, but I understand and agree with the chain of logic. Intent, like, because like awareness feels less proactive to me than conscious
Mhm.
in the context of this. Like I would actually say like being aware and intentional makes you conscious, but you can intentionally
Mhm.
make an unconsciously bad decision. That's like my issue. Like if you
That is
aren't, go
true.
ahead.
Oh, that sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, well, like word rotating over here. Yeah, like I think if I use like my like verbal addition,
Mhm.
awareness plus intentionality equals conscious for me.
Mhm.
So conscious is kind of like a summation of the other two things that are also useful to understand.
Mhm.
I don't know if I would agree with that gun to my head in this moment, but that's kind of like I think where I'm going to operate during this episode.
I like what you said about how you can unconsciously make a decision, because I think that's often the case, right? Like there's multiple personas within us, and some of them are operating like behind the scenes in a Dick Dastardly kind of way. And like when that makes a decision, then we're later going, "Oh crap, what did I do?" Like that is an example of an unconscious or subconscious decision.
What's the last unconscious decision you made that you're
Uh
aware of?
oh, here's one that I was telling you last night. Was talking to Sam about like trying to finish up this course I'm building, right? And I kept feeling this resistance, and I was really slow in putting together. So I was like, oh no, I'm procrastinating. What the heck is going on? And I thought, oh, you are scared of being it's not going to meet your standards or something like that. The typical perfectionist
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But after talking to her, I realized that no, my subconscious was telling me you're building a system for a group of people to have fun, but you actually can't do that right now because you haven't like built up the level of marketing for a group to appear. So you are instead like I should have designed. It's sort of like instead of like building a like a Mini Cooper, I build a school bus for some reason, and it's
Mhm.
gonna have like one person in it, and it's like it makes no sense. But I don't think I realized that. I just saw it as like, why am I dragging my feet?
Yes. maybe we'd call that like pre-optimizing. Like we've talked about that before. Like you're building for a scenario that doesn't exist and doesn't need to exist yet.
Yeah, exactly. Which some annoying person has an essay about.
Yeah. And he's got 2 thumbs.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's like I pre-optimized, but I wasn't even conscious of the fact that I did it. And now I'm looking back, I'm like, once I realize it though, now I'm like, oh duh, like I lifted a whole huge burden off myself.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. How did you go from not being I mean, like, you just explained it actually, but how did you go from being unconscious to conscious about it?
Well, I like complained about it to Sam, and like, but then like they asked me like various questions of like you know, is it this, is it that, and I was like, no, it's not this, it's not that, and then of course like 10 minutes after we ended the conversation, it popped into my head.
Did you complain with intent?
Uh,
Or were you venting?
I asked for advice, but I wasn't expecting this. Like I was expecting, of course, like you know, Sam did give some good advice, but like what emerged is something that only I could have known because, of course, Sam couldn't have known all these like weird little intricacies, right? Yeah.
It's crazy how like, it's crazy how when, sorry, it's crazy how when we externalize something like that, it helps us like not wrap our like soft underbelly of ego into it sometimes. Like, honestly,
Oh yeah, I was totally defending my ego in the whole conversation too.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
Which is fine. Like I feel like not fighting that I'm defending the ego is more important than trying to defend it. Makes it worse.
Yeah, like the little like the jackrabbit prayer response of like protect me. It like
How about you?
I've been thinking about what are like I think it's really hard to characterize an unconscious to conscious decision outside of like big pivotal things or like inflection points or schisms. I have a bunch of mini battles I'm fighting every day. I just shut down my startup and I've been, you know, trying to figure out what is wrong with me. Like I still got to like, you know, finish doing some of the stuff to shut it down, but I'm waiting on other parties. But now that the bulk of the, I got to get up and panic work on this thing every day is gone, I still feel the like low level anxiety and dread. And like, I'm like craving that thing now, even though I intentionally tried to shut it down so that I wouldn't be in this trap anymore. And as I researched it a little more and more, I think I've come to the conclusion that I'm like addicted to that like cortisol anxiety of.
Oh, yay! You found out.
It's not anything you haven't said before, but a common theme of this show is I don't listen to other people because
that's true.
I have to learn it the hard way. like unfortunately, I really do. The thing that makes me really good at some things has the consequence of I need to learn a lot of things the hard way. And so knowing that I'm addicted to, or like kind of assuming that I'm addicted to this, not adrenaline, but like adrenaline adjacent brain chemical has helped me identify a bunch of things that I do to feed that beast now that I don't have the task list of things that would feed into that. You know, classic things like binge eating garbage food, doom scrolling on my phone for a long time, rabbit holing really deep into like not fun thing, like those types of things, as far as I can tell, are coping mechanisms to substitute for the thing that I've had, which is this like ambient black gray cloud of, hey, you need to work on this thing. Now that that's gone, I'm making my own gray clouds above my head so that I don't miss the gray cloud that I had, because my brain wants that stasis, because that was my life for so long. So the short answer is I've realized doom scrolling is one of the more common gray black clouds that I'm bringing into my life, and I'm doing my best to be aware and conscious and intentional about oh, this is an activity that I'm using to substitute these other things that I actually care about because this is a much more immediate cortisol, dopamine, adrenaline, whatever payoff.
I have a question for you.
Please.
So, in recalling our last episodes at the previous one, we talked about the Warren Buffett top 5 list of things to do. I don't know about you, but like that, I've kind of like substituted you as the cortisol like like meter because I'm like, okay, Monday we actually have a stand up with each other, right?
do.
Where we talk about our list of things. So I'm emergency rushing things actually Sunday night just so I can have more items completed.
Yeah.
Does that not work when it's the other way around? Am I not a good enough boss for you?
I think I'm in flux. I do think the event itself is a good rhythmic touchstone. I'm kind of doing some of it Monday morning, but more on the planning side, not on the like execution side. I don't think of you as a boss.
I know.
I think of you as like a partner. And as a partner, I would rather be aggressively honest about the stuff I didn't do than try to scramble to half do stuff so that you don't get upset with me. Because I know you're not going to get upset with me. And we've also had a ton of level setting conversations about what our expectations for OK Banger are. I think that's my answer.
And I don't even mean the OK Banger stuff. I mean the other stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I mean like I think I'm very much in the, it's not rock bottom, but there needs to be a word for the pendulum swing away from like ultra uptight and task oriented to fully formless and scheduleless.
Yeah.
Like that swing is what I'm doing to like detox my not very effective but very busy previous self from a month or two ago.
Right. I mean, like, ideally, you and I can be motivated by joy and like the wanting of sharing of things, right? And I feel like
we are in pockets.
Yeah, and because I've seen like some of your creative projects you're working on, the ones that I feel you've made the most progress on is actually the ones with absolutely no deadline. So yeah, about that.
Yikes.
Yeah. Inverse correlation there. How strange.
What does that mean?
You found the thing that you love to do. And there is some, okay, here's the thing, right? Even as I was talking to Sam and they were like, oh, as you know, with a business, there are just some components that are grindy and embarrassing and it sucks so much to do it. But I think you and I are trying to solve a different puzzle, maybe to our detriment of like, what are things that we can do that we do not perceive to be a grind at all?
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, like,
I kicked Karen into an existential moment.
No, it's just kind of like, we've talked about this before, and it's something that I do genuinely believe that the thing that you can do the longest is the thing that you're ultimately.
Yeah, literally, I'm quoting you back to you.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I have this Kafka journal, like all of his like diary entries.
Oh, actual Kafka, yeah.
And I open that every once in a while to just read him being in the pits, when he, like 28 or 33 or whatever, just like a random day, existence is pain, Jessica didn't write me back or whatever. And I don't know, maybe I'm in one of those little like troughs of I'm still doing the things that I want. I'm still, writing poems on scraps of paper and index cards. That's why we've been talking about containers a lot. Like I need my containers for my creative output that is the atomic unit of production for those, so that like I don't want to constrain the stuff that I'm doing, but I do want to funnel it or channel it towards something that accumulates. Like that's kind of our theme this year is like we're trying to enter this accumulation era of we do things that snowball into bigger and better and more useful things for us, maybe more lucrative for us, but it's certainly like more enriching spiritually for us. And we've both kind of been flailing around, I don't know, for the past like year and a half of doing a lot, accomplishing a lot in silos, but not it being like a unified pushing forward of the stuff we actually care about. I don't know. Was any of that useful? I just kind of talked. I blacked out.
Were you not conscious?
No, I was very much unaware.
You're so funny. So the other aspect of this book that I think is really hard to talk about is critical thinking. So a lot of it, like even as I read this quote, learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. And I think this is the hardest thing that is slipping away from all of us.
I'm torn with that framing because people did say the same thing about the internet and TVs in your house and movies and photography. Like when you make a piece of technology, it changes how people interact with like knowledge and thinking and other people and communication. Like that's just how fundamental Gutenberg press type technologies impact humanity. That said, I do definitely think there are aspects of the internet today, whether it's like content media. So like, I don't think social media exists really in a form today. I think it is very much like content economy media. Like in that, the biggest thing that I've seen related to critical thinking, which I like fully have experienced and think is maybe one of the biggest problems, is the idea of context collapse. Have you come across that term, or have we talked about that?
I think you and I have talked about it privately, but maybe not on stream.
Like context collapse, like different people have different definitions because that's how words work. But context collapse, as I've come to think of it, is when people see a snippet of something like a short and they view it either isolated as its own individual iceberg of things without understanding that it lives within a cultural history or like a discussion history or like a group of people that you might not understand. Like they view this thing in isolation as opposed to the context in which it was actually created. Or they bring their own context to it and assume that everybody else has that context. So their understanding of the thing is fundamentally wrong, which we disagree about, people like understanding. But I think their understanding of the media as it was intended by the creator is fundamentally wrong. That doesn't mean it's invalid, but it's not what the person was trying to say. And as a result of that collapse of context into just this like isolated or like siloed band from the viewer, they get completely a different interpretation of it than what they probably could have, should have, would have if they understood the context. So you have billions of people talking past each other.
Right. So here's my hypothesis on how to deal with context collapse. It's like you have to know how the sausage is made. So do you know the magicians Penn and Teller?
Of course.
Oh, I don't know what you know, but I grew up watching them, right? And what I really love are those magic tricks where they use like transparent cups and like, you know, or like transparent tubes where theoretically you can see what's going on, and they show you the first few moves. Which are like, you know, this is how you can like, you know, deceive someone. But then they do something so complicated that even when it's transparent, you still can't tell how they did it. And I feel like it's the same way. Like if we understand how the Gutenberg press works, if we understand how LLMs actually work in terms of the code behind it, then you would understand or have a greater context as to how things appear. And of course, you know, there's also the people involvement, right? There's like special interests and media and all sorts of things.
Okay,
But
so
if you
you're
have that
talking about
context-
so you're talking about understanding the medium of communication, not what the maker of the bit of
Both.
media
You need
wanted?
both.
Okay.
It's like now because technology is so embedded within the medium is the message, cheesy is saying, right? But
No,
like
can
because
you like talk about the medium is the message? Because there's like a very famous piece of writing, or it's like a whole ass book, isn't it?
yeah,
think-
yeah. I feel like I need you to explain the book, but like, just
Yeah.
as an example of like LLMs and AI, right? Nowadays, like that literally is the whole message. Or generation of the whole message is dependent on the entire medium. Therefore,
So-
understanding the mechanisms behind it is important for like, our agency, or like understanding like cognitive biases, which we talked about in our previous book. Like those are the additional implicit context to a message, right? Like if someone is saying something and everyone's believing in it, like there might be like authority bias. But because you don't understand the meta mechanisms behind why you believe in something, that becomes even more like unconscious because you're being unconsciously manipulated. So the more of these like toolings you understand, both cognitive and technological, the more likely you will have resilience and like your ability to remain critical.
So I feel like we're like a little floaty right now. Can you make that super practical? Like when you are saying something like the medium is the message for like a short, what does that mean? Like if I see something in a short, how do I apply that to what I'm seeing?
For example, you should understand that there is a story arc to a short.
Okay.
But you and I talk a lot about that. You taught me, like, it's like you have to start with the hook, and then you have to have a 3 acts. Like there is some like structure to it, right? But it's like, why do we start with the hook? Because we are trying to grab your attention right away within the first 5 seconds. So therefore, if someone is making a short that has grabbed your attention in the first 5 seconds, we can start to think, wait, why am I so captivated? Is it designed to manipulate certain emotions of mine? And that's why the most viral shorts are the most like emotionally like hooky, right? They're trying to get at fear. They're trying to get at like certain aspects that are much more easy to override in terms of our conscious thinking.
Yeah, kind of like expanding on this idea of the medium is the message, like the overarching idea that changed how a lot of people who make media's perspective on media is that the way you're communicating with somebody shapes how like the actual technology of how you're communicating shapes the message in the sense that like if you are sharing a tweet versus an essay versus a short form video versus a long form video versus a movie, like the different constraints of that medium change what you can do. We talked in a previous episode about the difference between There Is No Anti-Memetics Division and the show Severance, where they both like talked about this idea of memory loss, but being able to communicate visual signals between the characters in terms of like a romance explanation of like, oh, there's chemistry between these two characters. Like you can do a lot with the visual medium of explaining, like having little touches in the background, having red colors that like make people think that there's something romantic going on. You can do that in a visual medium that you can't do in a text medium. So you have to like change what you're actually saying, and the actual changing of that message as a result through the technology, through like that people are receiving it in, shapes what the heck is happening. And so like you end up having these places where some aspects of it, some aspects of a message will get like overemphasized just by nature of the technology that you're communicating it with. So I think like bringing it back to what you're saying about, maybe AI generated stuff, but like definitely in algorithmically powered short form video feeds, it is trying to get you to look at this thing for longer. Pretty straightforward, but drawing the line between, okay, it's trying to get you to look at it for longer. All of these individual shorts are designed to maximize your dwell time in that 30-second, 60-second period. That means every beat of that short has to have like every single step of that short, like every 2 seconds, there has to be something that grips you further, either by like driving dopamine, driving like a severe emotional response, like getting serotonin, getting you riled up. And so like it's easy to say, it's hard to understand in the context of like the tidal wave of information that you get, but like the hook transitioning into creating an open loop, so there's a question in your mind that you need to have like closed before you can move on to the next thing, having a subplot within that short so that you like get immediately distracted from that open loop that just happened, like the fun and games that happens during it, the closing of the loop, and then making the outro of the video maybe a little bit of a misdirect so you don't realize that it started looping. Like all of these things are hyper engineered to distract you from actually having a conscious thought a lot of the time.
Correct. And so the only way I can like ethically justify us doing it or myself doing it is it has to be, the poison has to be the cure, right? Like hopefully with this, what we just said is mixed into a clip, but like if we can make people more aware of these mechanisms so that we can be like Penn and Teller doing things with the transparent cups and tubes, then I feel like our efforts are more justified because it is to, you know, disrupt the loop by being part of the loop because it's hard to start. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to read some chat.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I really love how Okay Baby sent that's really honest if you can, and I think a lot of people can quietly relate to this even if they don't talk about it. That loop of panic to action to brief relief, back to panic, it can become a strange kind of comfort, especially when your identity or rhythm has been built around it for so long. Shutting something down doesn't shut down the nervous system patterns right away.
It's like eating a giant bag of barbecue chips.
What? You can't have just one?
Kristen, have you ever had just one chip?
No.
That's insane if you have.
No, because then I get like, you know, obsessed with like, you know how there's like sometimes the folded over chips where you get the double crunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always looking for that chip. And Bias said, communicology. Y'all need to meet communicology. Let us know the author of that book, because I feel like the title might be used in several places.
Yeah. I'm making a note though. It like I love this stuff. I have a couple started drafts of a unified theory of content, which is like in that theme.
Yeah. And Cool Beans said, understanding and using propaganda tactics is very important in Mo, in my opinion. Agree.
Yeah. I mean, like, one of the really interesting things that I've noticed over the past few years is the resurgence, like ebbs and flows in humanity in general, but the resurgence of explicit dehumanization tactics in terms of like naming and othering groups.
Oh, yeah.
That the army used to help me become a soldier. And I kind of like awoke to, as I went through my service, like, we do like a lot of media today is explicitly doing that. Frankly, a lot of right wing, but also a lot of left wing media is doing that.
Yeah, both sides are doing it. I don't think it's a one sided thing at all.
Yeah, and like the othering of. There's a really good book called On War by Sebastian Junger. Have you ever read that?
No.
I feel like that would be an interesting addition to Chaplin canon. But it's like basically a psychological exploration about how people become predisposed or capable of fighting war. Because it's like not a natural thing to, it's a natural thing to have conflict. The act of like projecting violence onto other people is like a fundamentally disturbing activity. And getting, especially like modern people, into the mindset where that's even possible, it's a process. It doesn't just happen.
Do you view what you're doing now, the creative stuff that you're doing? Because you mentioned you fight many battles every day, and I thought that word choice was really interesting. Do you consider yourself to be fighting a war right now? I
think I am constantly fighting against myself. I think I'm constantly fighting a battle between my higher and lower selves. I don't know if I love that definition, but that's the word that I have in this context.
Yeah, somehow you have gone like like woohoo girly and also battle man at the same time with that phrasing. I'm constantly in battle with my higher self.
Like, I am a mix of navel gazy, psychological, like armchair general dude energy, and actually punching people in the face in meat space. Like, I don't box do MMA stuff anymore because my brain box is really important for the rest of my life. And I've read the literature on concussions and I've already had a couple.
Yeah, you're not allowed anymore.
Yeah. And so like I really like the physicality of like no joke, like wrestling, fighting, whatever, but I also really, really care about kind of like the intellectual side of experiencing existence. And so the framing through which I view my own struggles is that. And I have this like, like poet, dweeb, like creative side of me too. And so like when I wake up and I here's a micro example. I know that if I wake up with my phone, and I know if I wake up and my phone is within arm's reach, I'm going to lose 30 minutes on content. I know that. I know that for a fact because it happens every time. So I have to create a system where my phone is in the other room when I wake up, but that creates, secondary and tertiary effects of like, okay, I need to do this so that I don't just like wake up and then immediately go to my phone. And because like I end up losing that battle again. But so by thinking of it as battles for me, it lets me game plan out how I deal with the different aspects of myself of like the paths of least resistance are the things that I'm battling against.
Do you think it's, if you could choose, would you rather be at peace or win the war?
I think
there's no right answer. I'm not saying everyone should be at peace. I'm actually not saying that, but especially beans.
Even if you did, I'm comfortable enough in my own philosophy of the world that like we can have different ones.
Yeah.
I think that I like fighting. I've said that before, but I like that piece. I do think I've been socialized for a big chunk of my life that my only utility is in production. So that's definitely a factor at play. I think I can fight the war while feeling at peace. That's actually been my that's actually been my optimal flow state. Because it's not about winning all the fights. It's about having enough in my life that I want to keep fighting for things. Because like I've had big periods of time where like apathy was the driving emotion for whatever I was doing. Is apathy an emotion? I don't know.
I think it's a neutral one.
Interesting. I'm interested. Like, okay, I'm
it depends on how you define apathy too. I feel like this is again a war of words.
Yeah, I mean, what else is there?
Yes. Okay, Banger is the word rotator show.
Maybe I'll do a Cameron Spirals video on is apathy an emotion.
Yeah, that'll be a great one. Oh, by the way, there's a secret YouTube channel called Cameron Spirals. Can people find it if they search the term, you think? Okay.
Yeah, Cameron Spirals. I have one video out. It was just kind of like it was a Kristen-spurred creative blast about basically the Dunning-Kruger effect. Just because like I was feeling like I was losing a battle with myself, and that's what drove me to make stuff.
It's great. It's a take on that effect that I have not actually seen.
Oh, cool. I appreciate that.
Because there's a lot of like, oh, you're in the valley of despair, blah, blah, blah. But no one ever presented a solution. You actually have one. The
comment section doesn't agree with you.
Oh, really? Oh, yay. You have debate. Yeah, I'm so excited.
I had one guy who was just like, you didn't need to make a video this long to say that delusion is useful, which is funny.
Oh, Wow, that's so great. This is so funny. Okay, so speaking of like these kind of comments on YouTube, isn't it so great that he watched the whole thing, summarized it, processed it, and then told it back to you,
It's incredible.
right?
Like obviously, I
The
kind
amount
of
of work with these comments.
yeah, it was a very Hacker News energy comment, which like I
Yeah.
appreciate, because that means it's probably going to adjacent to the people that like I think would find it interesting.
Yeah.
I did have a brain blast, Jimmy Neutron, of what I had this thought, frick, like 18 years ago, because I was very good friends with this guy who was a better musician than me, but we would like make music together, and I really appreciated his friendship. I'm not gonna dox him, but we were talking about songwriting, and I was conscious of the fact that I didn't have a lot of fuel to write songs in that moment. And I was like, why? And it was because I was like pretty happy in my, 15-year-old, 16-year-old relationship with my girlfriend at the time. There was no drama. I was doing well at like all the stuff that I was doing. I didn't have like I'd gotten all my college applications in. And so I was like pretty content. And I was just like, I'm not writing songs right now because I don't really have an internal conflict. And so like the act of creating things is so important to me that I think I would probably choose ongoing conflict within reason, so that I have the fuel to do the things that I want to do. Now that I have more perspective on creative things now, so I don't need an active conflict in my life because I've experienced bad things. I've experienced good things too. And so like I can use that as fuel, but I think in the same way that you do need to continually add wood to a fire to keep it going, I wouldn't want to be conflict-less if I could choose that, which is very privileged to say. But I think I have found enough. I've somehow crafted enough of a perpetual or mostly perpetual motion machine that like I just want to put more like right-sized pieces of wood onto the fire so that like the fire burning is the point, not not needing a fire anymore.
So I feel like being conscious of the conflict being self-generated is the solution to the peaceful heart while fighting a war.
Do I buy that?
You better, because I just summarized what you said. Anyway, so the last part of the book, if we may move on, is about other. So we talked about intrapersonal stuff, right? But the ending of the commencement speech is about interpersonal. Like,
Yeah.
I think he ends with a story of like, the next time, like, you are in a really long grocery line or in like stuck in traffic for hours, like, and being annoyed at the person in front of you, like you may not know that the person who's annoying is like going through a lot of stuff in their own lives. And it sounds really obvious to say, but I think in the moments of when we are like frustrated, it's almost impossible to remember.
I don't think this is very obvious, actually.
Oh, okay.
Like to me, this is capital E empathy, and I don't think a lot of people practice empathy regularly. I think it's a function of life is challenging in its own way for everybody. But I like there's very little stakes to not be empathetic, or like, you know what I mean? Like the downside of not being empathetic is like a soul downside. It's not like a life downside.
I would say it's trade-off, maybe. I would say, like, when you are annoyed at someone, that allows you to be able to displace the uncomfortable feelings. Because now you have an object in order to put it on, right? It's like, I feel bad, but I'm gonna, be mad at this other person because then I have a reason for why I'm feeling bad.
Do you think it's like about legibilizing? Because
I think so. It's legibilizing what somatically feels really bad.
I don't I don't think I agree with that because I don't think most people get to the step of thinking about why they feel bad.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that is what I'm saying. They don't know. Or we don't know when we're mad sometimes, right? So therefore, like it's because it is not conscious. Therefore, we project, as you have observed with me, I'm probably projecting like whatever I'm annoyed about myself onto you and other people.
Yeah. I mean, said another way, people are constantly crafting their narrative of the world most of the time with like faulty information.
Yes.
I don't think that's the stop. Like I think that is a thing that is happening. I think the why is it's practical and useful to do that. Like it is much more practical. Maybe I'll even go as far as say like the economics of making decisions almost always favors making a fast decision. And so like if you make no decision, the tiger eats you. If you make a decision really fast and run away, you don't get eaten by the tiger. Either way, like if the tiger was real or not, you still don't get eaten by the tiger. So like structurally, in terms of making micro decisions in your life and macro, if you make a fast decision, most of the decision-making process favors just doing it faster, even if it's not necessarily the right decision, because the action generates more information, blah, 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 stuff that we talk about all the time. In the grocery line, making the fast decision about something else resolves that open loop very, very quickly. And maybe the fact of an open loop of your life existing being painful because like not knowing is painful is like the fundamental reason. Although chat has a good point that like American values don't teach empathy, and like perhaps it's fundamentally in conflict with the values that are taught.
Oh, for sure, and then worse than ever, right? But like I feel like whenever we use these like chased by tiger kind of examples, I feel very conflicted because the mark of society or civilization is that you are no longer chased by tigers, right? We can build, zoos and other things to keep the tigers away. And our ability to be able to do these long-term things to protect us from tigers is dependent on us moving away from the reactionary feelings sort of modalities. And because now we're also stressed because of the economy and other sort of things, like we're unable to elevate ourselves from the constant stress where these sort of emotional outbursts are a lot more common, right? So it's like there's like individual agency but also society pressure that's happening that causes the average boomer to get mad at our okay banger short when we talk too fast.
Yeah. That makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I don't think
Chad, that is actual things that happen in our comment section. and every time I'm like, oh no, poor Leslie.
So I think, I mean, I agree with you that a hallmark of society is long-term coordination. I don't think society is only defined by long-term coordination. I think there are a lot of things that that is demanded of societies that are short-term decisions that need to be made. And so I think that like, you can argue about the semantics of how long it should take to make a decision, but I think that like there is a ratio of long-term prioritization versus short-term prioritization that you should have.
Kind of like in The Good Place, right? Like, spoiler alert for a show that's been out for a long time. When they went to heaven, they realized it's a bunch of these like timid committee people who can't make a decision because they're trying to consider every possible angle. Yeah. So we don't want that either. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, chat's also right. Like, saying it's evolutionary is huge oversimplification. I think simplifications are really useful. All models are wrong. Some models are useful in the sense that we are more or less like we have more in common than not with a person that was alive 3,000 years ago. Like in terms of, like we all need the same things. If we take that person and plop them into society from birth, like I think they would roughly turn out to be the median type person. And so like being aware of that and kind of like understanding that all of the window dressing and differences in how we live life is a result of a bunch of people kind of coming together and collectively deciding, no, this is a better way for us to kind of function in our day to day via social contracts, whatever. Like, I think that's pretty incredible. And while the shorthand is simplifying like the process, using those simplifications lets you have a better conversation about the things that matter more to us right now. I mean, like coming from the biology background, like, what do you think? I mean, I guess what's your thought on that?
Oh gosh, you said a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting a little bit heady again.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
the
which
name of
is
the
the
game.
whole show. So in terms of like, to summarize what you said, I agree. It's like societal impact is much greater than we all like to admit. But that's where the agency of choosing your, 5 friends around you and all these things come into play, so that we can adjust our environment within our control, in order to, again, like regain like, sovereignty over the way we think.
Yeah, that makes sense
Yeah.
to me.
So lastly, there's
I'll-
one controversial thing about David Foster Wallace, right?
Can I get
Yeah.
your quick take on something?
Yeah.
He dedicates a couple paragraphs to talking about the grind of existence, like waking up, going to work, coming home, going to the grocery store. That line takes too long. Blah blah blah. Like that's the setting through which the discussion we just had was had. Do you have thoughts on the monotony of modern life and that weighing on you week after week after week? Because these college kids haven't really experienced that that he's talking to. And I find that really fascinating because I think both of us have had versions of it. And could you talk about like your experience with that and like what your internal tooling you built so that you could not David Foster
I think
Wallace?
fooling is a very generous way of saying things that have happened. So I did go through the corporate grind, right? Like actually, when I was a scientist, that really was day in and day out, because you end up doing really repetitive tasks by definition in order to have consistency in your experiments, right? And I think at the time I enjoyed it, but then once I went into the corporate world, there was this feeling of I should be doing something else, but I don't know what that is, and it's really amorphous. But like this constant nagging of like, this isn't your place in life. You need to be doing something else. However, like, I'm not saying that what I'm doing is better, because I think there's plenty of people who have like steady corporate jobs and are very happy, and you can tell like they are in their place.
Yeah.
So it just really depends. But
You're just saying it was better. It's better for you to do.
yeah, it's a
something
better
like
fit, right? And then like the whole misunderstanding about evolutionary fitness is it's not about being jacked. It's about like, fitting into the place of the pattern, which you are most genetically, spiritually apt for, right?
Yeah.
So like for so in that case, like the monotony is kind of funny to me, because in a way I have created a new monotony, right? Like,
Yeah.
although I would like to think that I'm a free agent who's like doing whatever she wants, like there is still a routine. It's just a very different chaotic one that I've created in order to get stuff done. So I think it's just like, do you get to choose the monotony of your choice? That is the more important thing to me. And monotony itself is pretty value neutral, and in fact can be kind of soothing, right? Because it's like the more stability you have, the more creative freedom you can have. It's like we can't expect someone who's living an extremely chaotic, unstable life to also create. That seems a little. Some people can do it, but I don't think it's actually ideal.
That's interesting that you locked into the monotony part of it.
Oh, are you asking something else?
Well, I mean, I think I asked that, like, but I think what I meant, like the way I interpret what he's talking about is he's saying words talking about like an overlit grocery store, walking down the aisles that are too big, and like he's talking about existing in a place that like fills him with dread is like the subtext of it. The dread isn't from the place. The dread is from places existing and that are dreadful. I think.
Yeah. Or subconsciously recognizing something is wrong.
Yeah. And so like I have at various times in my life felt like I've been living in that same slow burn horror movie of like, this is the bad place. This is not right. This is like a dark version of existence, and I'm not sure if there is a light place ever. And so for me, I think I was asking is like, have you felt, irrespective of the monotony or not monotony of it, is like, have you been to the bad place?
Oh, plenty of times.
Is it like a capital B bad place or lowercase b bad place?
Oh no, I've been to like the capital B bad place. As I've expressed in the previous episode about depression and all of that. I think it's the anti-memes episode, right? So those are like the super capital B bad places. But I also want to say that I often reflect on the various times during those darker times where I was really suffering, and now looking back, I'm like, oh, like it wasn't that bad actually.
I wouldn't minimize your pain, man.
I know. I should have minimized past Kristen's pain, but
Yeah.
it's like, again, it's the context, right? Because I've accumulated more context since the time I was feeling bad, like that. The perspective on that has changed.
Yeah, like it's really easy to look at like a 16-year-old that just got broken up with and be like, "Oh, you'll be fine, dude." Or like, and for the the young person that hasn't experienced that like painful moment yet, like I truly don't think it's possible for us as like adults to empathize past a certain point. Because we're so far removed from that like initial first cut of heartbreak. And so like, I always really like, I don't like it in the sense that I'm glad that they're in it. I like it in the sense that it is reading David Foster Wallace's writing about his capital B bad place is a brief bridge across that interpersonal gulf that is between us, all the time. And like, I really, really appreciate that aspect of his writing.
Yeah. Which brings us back to what I was alluding to, which is in the end, like David Foster Wallace was suffering from extreme clinical depression. I think he went through like electric shock therapy and all sorts of very extreme stuff, but he did take his own life. So, which I think like it's the thing. It's almost like can you separate the art from the artist sort of thing, right? Can you what he says here is really wise, but unfortunately in his own personal life, like he drowned. What do you think of that?
This is like the aggressive libertarian in me coming out, or like the structure. Like, I think everybody has the right to take their own life. I don't advocate for it, but I think it is fundamentally selfish for you to put your morality on somebody else's like context and experience and struggle. I've had friends who've killed themselves. Like, it is very painful. It's unfortunately extremely common in the veteran community, at least relative to the general population. And while I disagree with those people's decisions, I am glad that they made their decision. I really hope that in their position, they're like, this was the right thing for me, and like they had a moment of clarity at the end that they thought it was the right thing. If there's any doubt, I think people should not. But the reality is like, I don't think that there's a what's next. Like, I don't think that there's something next. And if you want to punch your ticket, that's your right.
Yeah, I think like that's where I'm really torn because like we do know that there are places of regret, right? For example, like if you choose a method like jumping off a bridge, like there have been people who survived that and was like, oh no, the moment I tried to jump, like I regretted it immediately, and luckily like miraculous things happened that saved their lives. So it's sort of like, oh, there's also this percentage of people where it was an impulsive decision.
For sure.
But I think, yeah, I agree with you. I think people should have the agency to make these kind of choices. But as like, friends and people who care about these people, I also feel like it is like part of our care to make sure that the person is able to be able to make more choices about how to change their lives before making this very final choice, at least for this lifetime,
Yeah. Also, anybody out there, if you are thinking about this, like our DMs are always open. Like Kristen or I would be. I actually I don't want to speak for you, but I would be happy to chat. I've had,
well, we're better than ChatGPT. We won't glaze you up with your decisions.
like I've had this hard conversation before, and I'm prepared to do it again. The I didn't love. Hold on one sec.
What is happening there?
I forgot I've had my window open the whole time.
Okay.
I didn't love the can you separate the art from the artist? Because especially within the context of David Foster Wallace, I think it reinforces the value of his art, like in a gross way, not a gross way, in an odd way. He is arguably much more of an authority on the struggle with depression and drug addiction and all of these really hard topics that he talks about. And he kind of like proved it at the end of his life. I don't think you need to do that to be authoritative on these subjects, but like, I think the facts play out that like his very graphic description of being successful and dealing with depression in Infinite Jest and some of his other writings, like, I believe it and give it that much more like weight and credibility when trying to understand my own struggles based on like how his life turned out.
I agree. I mean, I feel like that's what I try to do too. That's why I begin with like stuff like I am running around like a SpongeBob right now because I personally have a really like, bad gut reaction to people who talk about spiritual stuff who seem like a little bit too far along the path, let's just say. Like if someone is like unrelatable, I find it much harder to digest their message because I'm not sure whether they have been in the same place that I have, right? So I do feel much more drawn when people tell stories about their like, darker past and how.
Can you give me like a concrete example? You don't have to name a name. I just like I don't. Again, it's a little floaty. Like, what makes a person unrelatable?
So here's a example of a separate from art from the artist sort of spiritual teacher, right? There's like Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who is like this Tibetan like guru from the 70s. A lot of the words we use, like spiritual materialism and things like that, are actually coined by him. Like he essentially ran a cult like structure and then like, lots of abuse going on. And then also in the end, he died of liver cirrhosis from drinking too much. Like a very classical, like a lot of things he says are wise, but in terms of his own personal conduct, it didn't match at all.
Okay.
However, like when I was like deepest and darkest in depression, his writing resonated with me the most because he's able to describe depression so viscerally, having experienced it himself. And that is something that isn't that common in a lot of Buddhist teachings where they talk about like, the goals and the ideals of like, Buddhahood that doesn't really jibe with modern life and all of its like darkness, So I feel very torn because like I think his personal conduct is horrific, right? I don't think anyone should like be like him, but it takes the transformation of darkness, like that kind of message was really important to me at the time. And I think this is the kind of like the lofty non-duality, like what does it really mean? I think, like a more practical part of it is embracing the darkness and not seeing it as a separate part of ourselves. And like relating to your whole like message about like conflict being necessary for creativity, there is also this idea of like, well, like you have all this conflict, so you have something to work with, or else there's no material to transform in the first place. So I think like that's where like I feel like it's really hard to because like we would like to be able to be like, okay, this is an ideal person who's pure in these kind of ways and values that I want to achieve. But on the other hand, I think the more practical teacher is someone who has struggled and they may not have won, but at least they have gone through a more relatable path.
Full agree, hard stop. Do people chase perfect people because they want, like, is chasing perfect idols a form of self-soothing?
I think so, and also a subtle rejection of the parts that we don't like about ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's like a fine balance, right? Actually, Cool Beans mentioning Huberman, and I'm like, oh, that's a classic example, right?
Yeah. Like, I kind of find people that simp isn't the right word, but like I find people that are avid fans of folks. Like if you are a big fan of the redemption arc, I find those people aren't also big fans of like the perfect angel golden boy archetype. And
however, the redemption arc often ends with the golden angel, though.
Yeah, but I think like the golden angel from the redemption arc is like not a real redemption arc because it's been sanitized so that it doesn't actually have a rock bottom that isn't palatable. Like which, kind of constrains like really impressive redemption arcs. But maybe not. I don't know. Like, obviously there's some sort of line that people can't come back from and then be like, publicly accessible. But I've always liked my heroes to be just a little bit grungier. You know what I mean?
Like who?
I think like, obviously mine actually tend to be like interesting warrior monk energy. Like I'm a big fan of Mad Dog Mattis, the Marine Corps general, dedicated his life to the Marines. And then I'm also a big fan of Henry Rollins. And so are you familiar with Henry Rollins?
That name sounds familiar, but I can't quite place.
He was a singer, like the lead of, not singer, of Black Flag, like a big punk band. And he's kind of like been in and out of creative circles, but he's like full straight edge and he just like makes art. Whether it's like spoken word, whether it's like really weird music now, like he's just like been this like fringe creative. He like lifts, is just like this like grungy ex-punk creative figure, and like Anthony Bourdain kind of energy, like that kind of person. I've always related to a lot more because I know that I think thoughts and have experienced things that like don't fit into like the choir boy archetype. And so for me, that like it kind of maybe similar to you. It's just like, oh, this is a person that has been like knocked around in a meaningful way, and then also still makes space for the stuff that they care about.
No, I feel like I come across as too choir girl. I need to change my image.
Do you? Like, is it not serving you?
If you don't, especially if you don't watch this show where I tell you a lot more stuff, like I accidentally project a certain image that I think is not reflective of my shadows.
Yeah, but you're trying to balance like consulting work, and there's like a lot of things in there.
Where that needs to be more apparent?
No, where like, in the VGR Art of the Gig framework, like you want to have something that lets you make money.
Yes. And apparently there's a lot of mystique involved in that process, which again, that's what I don't love about the VGR, like Art of Gigs sort of thing. And I question whether I can ever fit that mold,
I support whatever decisions you got to make, but you should make them.
And I'm feeling like reflexively rebellious too because I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, but I want to do it my own way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
All right.
that's our theme. Chris says, I got to be honest. Wait, I don't remember if we talked about next week. I know I was supposed to do homework, but I definitely didn't.
I know you didn't. I was about to be like, so Cameron, what's our next thing?
I have a sticky note on my computer too, and I was like, oh no, I forgot. So
yeah,
we'll
it's
do
a surprise.
it's a surprise. Yeah, so surprise essay post next week. We'll post about it in the Discord. Join it if you haven't.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining, and it was really fun watching my lava lamp wake up as we were yapping.
Oh, true, true.
It went from the poop shapes to finally little globes.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's a good metaphor for the show. We just like blorb past each other.
Yeah. All right. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you in the Discord.
Bye.
Bye.